As Jade continues to fight the shortage, a local pharmacy in town has been able to fill prescription Adderall despite the nationwide shortage. Even though she spent most of her early career away from home, she decided to come back to her roots and get back to her community. Though he spent most of his time photographing the Midwest, he decided to make the U.S.-Mexico border, especially between Ciudad Juarez and El Paso, his main line of work for nearly 3 decades. Marta Estrada is a granddaughter of a bracero and first-generation Mexican-American, so she understands the importance of higher education. She works with students and families to ensure that they have the right resources to succeed in college. From 2004 to 2010, she worked as CAMP's academic advisor here at NMSU. Then instead of going to law school, she moved to Seattle to start the CAMP program at the University of Washington.
I left because I wanted to also practice what I preached. I would always tell my students, the camp students, when I would advise them, it's like, go study abroad, go do a co-op or an internship outside of New Mexico. At the time I was studying for the LSAT because I was thinking about moving on to law school. So it was either, taking the LSAT, applying to law school, or moving on to this job that I had applied for. I had seen the posting for a camp director at the University of Washington. Even though she spent most of her early career away from home, she decided to come back to her roots and get back to her community. I came back home to New Mexico as a director of a camp program in northern New Mexico College. The opportunity presented itself to come back to New Mexico and, like I had mentioned before, pay it forward to my community. Then the director of NMSU's camp program retired. When the director of NMSU camp retired and the job was going to be opening, I threw my name in the hat. I did submit my resume and I expressed that I really wanted to come back home. Camp's recruitment coordinator talked about Marta's passion and caring character, and 4 years on, it's been a good fit.
She's a really good person. I know she cares a lot about her family, about the students, about this program. So her energy and her self being who she is really brings a lot to this program.
Marta is a very kind-hearted person. She's very sociable, and I think her work ethic really comes to light in the camp program.
In the near term, Marta sees herself continuing to work for camp. In the long term, she says only God knows what she'll be doing. Either way, she plans to continue serving the migrant community across southern New Mexico and West Texas. Cesar Hernandez, News 22. Bruce Berman has been an associate professor in the Department of Journalism and Media Studies since 2006. Now he focuses on teaching photography, but has been a professional photographer for almost 4 decades. In the early days, he focused on documentary projects in his hometown of Chicago, where he photographed Appalachian migrants and the Black Panthers that led him to work for the New York Times.
I knew nothing. I had no training, no skill. I'd always been interested in photography, but I had nothing. And so I get back from college, and I came back to Chicago to be a writer. Working for the New York Times is the greatest thing in the world, not because it's the New York Times, because it kind of put me into things I would have not normally been able to get into.
He also photographed the street life of Chicago by going to blues bars.
At night, I'd go to the blues bars, and I'm in there shooting. They were fine. There was no limitations, but I didn't know what I'm doing.
Even though he spent most of his time photographing the Midwest, he decided to make the U.S.-Mexico border, especially between Ciudad Juarez and El Paso, his main line of work for nearly 3 decades.
Well, I didn't ever in my life expect to come to the border. I got a job on a telephone call from a desperate chairman of a department at UTEP saying, I have your resume. I wonder if you'd be considering coming to UTEP to teach photography. Can you be here in 3 weeks? Beginning photographers should come and live in El Paso for a while, because you're not only in America, but you have an international story right at your feet. I mean, walk across that bridge and you are not in the United States anymore.
He draws on his years of experience to help his students become more proficient.
They've gotten a lot better. Bruce is a really smart guy, and he just gives you like the tools that you need, the words of wisdom really that like if you just go up to him, have a quick question, he'll give it to you and just expand on your whatever you want to do from that.
So the population growth is
After
starting to
16 years,
soothe
he's
the
not sure how
small
much longer he'll teach at NMSU,
cultural
and he's already considering his next step.
contributor to that exhibition.
He sees himself doing documentary photography and working on an essay to illustrate the untold stories of around the Segundo Barrio in El Paso, where an unexpected phone call landed him 30 years ago. Cesar Hernandez, News 22. Patients such as Jade have been affected by the shortage alongside thousands of patients throughout the country. Back in October, the Federal Drug Administration announced a nationwide shortage on Adderall due to manufacturers not being able to meet the U.S. increasing demand for the drug. Teva, one of the nation's top supplier for Adderall, has been facing supply problems due to being unable to produce amphetamine mixed salts, which is a primary active ingredient in Adderall. Jade is currently a college student who has been impacted in several ways, such as having trouble to concentrate on daily things such as her homework and behavioral changes due to having to cut back on her daily doses.
My daily struggles since I had to cut back on my daily doses include I'm having some trouble sleeping, especially at night, as well as concentration issues. I get distracted very easily.
As Jade continues to fight the shortage, a local pharmacy in town has been able to fill prescription Adderall despite the nationwide shortage. Messiah Valley Pharmacy, a locally owned drugstore located in the heart of downtown Las Cruces, has been able to ease people's worries who depend on the drug despite the shortage.
Basically what we do to continue filling Adderall prescriptions is just being really detailed about continuing to check through all our suppliers, following up with all our patients and our providers, and really staying in tune to their needs.
Dr. Joaquin also commented that the shortage has caused frustration, gaps in care, interruptions at home, and interruptions in normal cycles in life, but hopeful that the shortage will end soon. As for Jade, she expressed support for other Adderall patients who are currently affected by the shortage.
My message for other Adderall takers out there is, to stay strong. And I also suggest, speaking with your doctor to see if there's anything else you could take in the meantime.
Cesar Hernandez, News 22.